A burst pipe? A dead water heater? The AC calling it quits? Who do you call? HomeServe is an easy way to handle unexpected home repairs with plans covering stuff basic homeowners insurance usually won't. Instead of scrambling for a contractor, you make one call to get the repair process started. Join the millions of customers who trust HomeServe right now. Go to homeserve.com/podcast for 50% less your first year. That's homeserve.com/podcast. Savings compared to renewal price. Void in Florida.
Welcome to the Sentimental Gardener podcast. I'm your host, Cass Dowding, and I've been really looking forward to bringing you this conversation, mostly because this isn't just about gardening. And if you've listened to the podcast for a while, that's very on brand, because this is a gardening podcast that's more than about gardening. Today's episode is about why something as simple as putting your hands in the soil seems to matter to so many of us, even when technically we don't have to do it anymore. I think a lot of us feel drawn to gardens in ways that we don't fully understand either. And today's guest is someone who's been living inside that question for a few years now. Hannah Moloney is a permaculture designer, educator, author, and a familiar face to many as a presenter on Gardening Australia. But long before any of that, her work sat at this intersection of community, climate, and growing things that actually sustain us. She grew up in an inner city herb nursery in Brisbane, which probably explains a lot about her story. And these days, she lives on a bright pink property in Tasmania that's been transformed into this thriving, slightly magical mini farm filled with food, flowers, and a cast of animals that I'm hoping we get into later. Her latest book, Why We Garden, asks a deceptively simple question. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we grow our food when we can buy it? Why do we tend gardens when we could just visit a park? And what she found from thousands of everyday gardeners, and some famous ones, is that the answer isn't really practical. It's emotional, it's human, and for a lot of people, it's about joy. In this conversation, we're going to talk about that, but also about grief, beauty, activism, and what it means to stay connected to something real in a world that can feel increasingly disconnected. She also answers a subscriber question on how do you deal with self-doubt and the challenges of social media, which goes into a whole other conversation on perimenopause, PMDD, and functioning despite it all. We'll make that available to our Sentimental Friends subscribers on Apple Podcasts and over at Patreon too. This conversation today took place over a call with me, Cass, recording on the lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations in Naarm, Greater Melbourne, and Hannah coming to us from Nipalina, Hobart, on the lands of the Mwinana people in Lewitra, Tasmania. I really hope you loved today's episode as much as I enjoyed listening to all that Hannah shared. With this Sentimental Gardener podcast, we always start at your earliest memories. So when you think all the way back, what are some of those early memories and the feelings of when you were in gardens or green spaces?
My first memory is mostly about feeling. I grew up in Brisbane on the herb farm, as you mentioned, and the feeling is like of being outside in the sun, and I can walk, but not very well. I'm a little toddler, so maybe like around 2-ish, I guess, maybe 1 or 2. And there's like the feeling of grass underneath my toes, sun on my skin. And my dad, he was my primary carer when I was little because my mum went back to work. And so my dad's nearby and I can hear him working in the herb nursery. So he's like shuffling and bumping and probably Radio National on in the background or something. So it's more of a sensation that it feels warm and sticky because it's hot, but just really also kind of just relaxing and just feels good, you know. It's like, oh, this feels nice. Yeah.
And so that's really interesting that you have an early memory from like that far back.
I think some of these memories like slip into being core memories, I think, like sometimes. And you can't remember all the detail, but the feeling you can remember more so.
Okay, I'd love to hear more about the herb farm because I understand it was in the middle of the city, if that's right, not out on like some farmland somewhere. So could you share more about the herb farm?
Absolutely, yeah. So we grew up in West End, which is a very dense inner city suburb, and Dad turned the backyard of a quarter acre into the herb nursery. He would have loved to have a farm, but it just didn't happen for them. So he's like, all right, I'm going to farm in the city. And so he turned it into a herb nursery. And then maybe when I was around 10 or so, Mum and Dad managed to buy the next door house as well. So he spilled over into that garden. So it doubled in size. And then a few years later, my grandmother moved across the road and he's like, oh, you've got a backyard. And so the herb nursery jumped the road and expanded into her garden as well. So we ended up with around maybe half an acre of herb nursery in the middle of the city. So at the time, very normal, very boring. As a kid, it's like, oh, yes, that's what Dad does. But looking back, I can see how absolutely unique it was and how much it shaped all of us kids in different ways. But our understanding of, cityscapes are still landscapes. You can use the land you have to grow what you need and or want. You don't need a farm to get a livelihood from a landscape, and you can create ecosystems anywhere. And these kinds of messages were really firmly embedded into my brain without me knowing it as a young person. So while I have lived in rural settings in my younger adult life, I'm really happy to live in Nipaluna, Hobart, which is a city, and I've worked all over in big cities across Australia, because I know you don't need a big farm to do what you want. And I love being able to walk and ride my bike everywhere. Both my husband Anton and I really value that very highly, not being car dependent. So, yeah, I really super grateful as an adult from both my mum and dad for crafting that type of life for us, because it really set me up in so many ways. Yeah.
Did your dad know what he was doing? Like, did he come from a background where he'd learnt how to grow, or was it work it out as you go?
Great question. So Dad grew up in Melbourne, and very much in the city, but his mother's whole side of the family had farms in central Victoria. So he was absolutely a city kid, but so much time spent out on farms with his extended family, and worked a lot as a jackaroo, and actually studied agriculture as well at university, but very much on a broad scale. And worked a lot in really remote parts of Australia with Aboriginal communities, more a community development role, but very much used to gardening and farming by extension on a larger scale. So when he got to Brisbane, he's like, okay, what can I do here that is, helps to deliver a livelihood, but it can use this landscape and be savvy in a really small space. And so he had lots of experience. But I think it's a good, I've never asked him, why did you choose herbs? That's a great question, Cass. I don't know. But he had a lot of experience in different ways and very comfortable working with the earth, but but he effectively started gardening in pots because he was selling pots of herbs, which is a very, different type of farming or gardening. I think I assume I'll ask him after this.
Okay, good. Get back to me and I'll let everyone know. Maybe we'll get your dad on for the next one.
Yeah.
No, but it does. I always think about those things about whether, people who have these, it's not a crazy idea, but it's a very out-of-the-box idea. Yeah, what their background is that maybe influenced it. But you could see how if he has been immersed in culture where, you make do with what you've got and having the agriculture background, that kind of makes sense. But, why herbs? Cass Dowding wants to know.
I'll check back in with you on that one.
So really interesting then that you grew up around plants so much as a kid, and I suppose getting past being a kid and leaving home, did you go, yes, I want to work with plants, or what was that journey like for you?
Quite the opposite. I think for a lot of kids who've grown up in a family business of any sort, we're just thrown into it by default. We are the workforce. And so I gardened because I had to as a young kid and a young adult. When I left home at 18, I was like, I am never working on a herb nursery ever again because it's relentless and, you never finished and it's hard work. And so I was like, I'm done with that. But I've travelled Australia extensively, working as I went to learn about the world and country we live in. And, I just worked along, I just would fund that kind of expedition, if you like, by working in different places. And within 6 months, I was working on a herb nursery in the Adelaide Hills and absolutely loving it. And because, I realised how much knowledge and skill I had, which I hadn't really maybe celebrated previously. And I just had come to it by my own way. I'm like, oh, this stuff is so interesting, but also so useful beyond not just herb gardening, but gardening and farming when you're doing it with ecology and people health and animal health in mind. It's like this stuff is absolutely part of the solutions that we need in our world. And that was, 20-something years ago. And I think I just stuck with me when I was, with 18 was an incredibly important year to me because I left home, I travelled Australia extensively, I fell in love for the first time, all these big things happened, and I found the context for my passions to fit into how to be useful in this world for this world. And it was very much centred around people and place, working with place, with landscape, and working with community to craft those solutions together. Yeah.
That's incredible that you discovered that at that age, because so much of us go through our 20s testing, trying, but, it was brave to go out but how cool that you found that at that age.
I didn't know that at that time. You don't know how lucky you are until you're looking back. But I absolutely wow, that's so cool that I was able to quite quickly lock on to what I'm still so passionate about. I would never be not passionate about this. And I love that I've been able to just go deeper and deeper with the decades as they go on. It's great.
Yeah, it's the gift of age, isn't it? The wisdom.
So good.
Okay, so you've travelled, and then I understand that not horticulture for you, it was permaculture. And so for anyone listening who hasn't heard of permaculture or is maybe a little bit confused by what is permaculture, are you able to just distill that really simply for us?
Of course. So just quickly, horticulture is like basically the subject of plants. You're just focusing on plants. What are they? How do they grow? How do you propagate them, etc.? That's a very brash summary. Permaculture is a holistic design framework. It's come from two people called Bill Mollison and David Holmgren in the 1970s, actually in Lutruwita, Tasmania. They coined this term about design thinking and doing. It absolutely originated from gardening and farming, but quickly expanded to include all of society. So it's a design framework with a dozen design principles and 3 ethics, which are earth care, people care, and fair share. And the theory is that these principles can be applied to any climate, any context, any culture, and because they're universal, but they'll manifest in different ways according to who's living there and what's happening. So it's incredibly unique in that it has these ethics and design principles that can be applied to landscape, but it can also be applied to governance, economics, health and well-being, education, building design, IT and tools, technology, and on it goes. I personally and most people come to permaculture for the gardening, and that's how I came to it, and the farming. But I stayed for that holistic design framework. I went, wow, this is super unique. I can apply this to my whole life, to how I think about, building design, or how I think about transportation in my life. And I think that's incredibly interesting that that framework can be so transferable. And for me personally, who I've come from a very strong activist background, I could see straight away how it's a really good framework, a useful framework for solution-based activism, which identifies the problem but either joins in with the solution or identifies a new solution and throws energy behind that. And I think that's a really important thing with activism. It's like, yes, it can be very good at saying what we don't want, but what do we want? And throw our energy behind that even more so we can tell each other new stories that we need to normalise, popularise, and maybe bring people on to really get traction behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, so activism was a major driver for you, it sounds like, in those early days. And then gardening was like the thing that you did alongside. Was there a point that you joined both of them together and then went, oh, I could do more with this? Or was it all just part of the big idea, the big picture of permaculture?
No, there was a couple of turning points. So with activism, for me, that looks like it can look like so many things. For me, that looks like environmental focused activism, a lot of forest campaigning in mostly Tasmania, where I now live. So a lot of, lots of forestry campaigns, living out in the forest for months at a time, lots of organising fundraising, street marches, very community engaged, and a lot of what we call frontline activism, where you're standing in front of the bulldozer, or you're standing at the head of the march, or you're very much, I'm going to say confrontational, not necessarily in a loud or violent way, but you're putting your body up front. And that's we need that type of activism always. And I think all types of non-violent activism is critical and valid and important. And I also think that not all activism is suited for all different people. So for me, I found that frontline activism incredibly draining, scary, and anxiety-inducing. It's like, oh, this is really confrontational. But I did it for years. I was like, okay, and then I thought, oh, actually, I can't do this anymore because it's draining me. I'm feeling anxious and sad, or unsure. And then I always garden throughout this. I'd always work on school community gardens and different projects with urban agriculture as a focus, or herb nurseries, just to earn some money. Eventually, I was like, actually, I can't do this anymore. And then thankfully I went, and that's when I took some time out. I did an actual permaculture course. Up to that time, I hadn't done a permaculture course, any formal training, but I had been incredibly fortunate to work with some of the best permaculturists in the world, including Anne-Marie and Graham Brookman in Adelaide at the Food Forest. And they were informal mentors for me and still are. So I'd learnt through doing. But I took some time out from this kind of activism work, did a 2-week permaculture design course, and it was a big turning point for me when, this is what I've been missing, just the theoretical understanding of how I can apply this, what I feel is solution-based activism, towards the same goal, which is creating a good life for everybody and all living things, whether it's a tree, bird, turtle, human, dog, whatever it might be. And so that's when I really jumped into permaculture and kind of gardening and farming more generally in a very full-time way. I went home, I quit my job, which was focused very much on frontline activism. I pivoted completely to only school and community gardens. I just started running workshops. I have not stopped, because I can see exactly that this is where I'm meant to be. I'm like, I was born for this.
So good. I love it. That's so great. When you have a thing that you're like, this is what I'm meant to do. Yeah. And it's not out of obligation, and it's like through trying different things. It just, I love it when people are like, I know what I'm here to do. Yeah. And it's really cool. I love it that you talk about activism, because I'm just thinking of my own personal experience that I haven't done a lot of activism like what you describe. And because sometimes, like in media, it can be portrayed as activism equals violence. So I love that you describe that solution-based and non-violent approach. And sometimes because I've done a bit of advocacy in the past, so advocacy and activism, how do you differentiate between the two?
It's a great question. There's a couple of things I want to unpack there, because in our culture, in media, activism is painted in a very bad light. It's something that disrupts us. It's incredibly inconvenient. It's for people who are unemployed, uneducated, like all these things, stereotypes. It's the media doing its work, basically saying these people are wrong and we are right. And the general, I'm doing some big general statements here, but they're saying that we need to restore business as usual, and these people are here to interrupt your life and your lifestyle, and they're bad for that, doing that. Activism simply means you care. It means you've identified a problem, which is very valid, and you want to be part of a solution to fix it, change it, address it in whatever way it needs. So activism can be so many things. It can be standing in front of a bulldozer. It can be also campaigning with your local politician, which it can be sending letters. It can be talking to nobody at all and just thinking about how you are in the world and going, I'm going to invest my money ethically into banks and superannuation funds that don't invest in fossil fuels. I'm going to vote progressively with future generations in mind. I'm going to engage with First Nations communities where I live and support their self-determination. I'm not talking to anybody with that stuff, but I'm absolutely being a solution-based activist, going, what power do I have? What can I control? Where will I point that power to have good impact? And so activism means a range of things. And I spend a lot of time just just normalising it and go, it is whatever you want it to be. It can be community engagement, it can be political engagement, it can be personal engagement. But I really believe that there's a type of activism for everybody. You just need to find it and do what's comfortable for you. Like it shouldn't. I don't believe, ideally, activism shouldn't make you feel uncomfortable or stressed out.
Okay.
There are absolutely situations across the history of humanity where activism requires you to be uncomfortable. And I think that's maybe a different conversation because we are so used to living in comfort. But I think it's important we push ourselves outside our comfort zones to think about other people and other life as well. I can go on a big tangent there, but my activism is solution-based. And I actively step outside my comfort zone because I'm not interested in having only a good life for me. I'm only interested in a conversation where everybody can have a good life, no matter their culture, their religion, their status, their bank account. So that requires some uncomfortable conversations or feelings. But I think if you're just starting out in activism or not sure, you go, okay, what can I do now? And you just work with what you have. And you know what? Doing something is better than doing nothing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so you cover it so much in the new book. And one of the chapters is about activism.
Yes.
When I read that, it, like you said, it normalized so much about it for me. And the book is called Why We Garden, on the joy and wonder of growing things even when we don't have to. In that chapter on activism, you say that you see gardens as a form of activism and as a form of resistance.
Yes. And it's very close to my heart, that concept, because and in that book I detail, like I showed, look how examples from time gone by of how when people have used it for both those things, rating back hundreds of years, where people would garden on what used to be common land. The diggers in the UK would the common land was taken away from them from the rich folks. They went, no, we need land to survive, and they did guerrilla gardening before it was called guerrilla gardening on the commons to reclaim it. It was a short-lived project, but it started those conversations like, no, land needs to be accessible. It needs to be available for people to survive rather than it being locked up and privatised. And I think gardening is a form of resistance because it's like, no, we will never let you take away our connection to land. It's so much more, it's absolutely at its most basic level about survival, whether that's food or resources. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving as humans, and we fundamentally need connection to landscape. Absolutely. You take that away, you're taking away so much of who we are. We are animals, just like every other animal on this earth. You take away access to nature. What are we? I think we are a lost cause. I don't understand how we can possibly survive into the future without that. And so I think gardening is resistance because it's putting our stamp, our absolute insistence that this helps us be our best humans, helps humanity be its best, I should say. Can't survive without that connection spiritually and practically.
Yeah. Well, the book started with that question, and you describe how it had been mulling in your brain for a few years, because it sounds like it was something you had questioned in your own life, why do I have the drive to do this and do it? But then what was the point at which you went, what is this in me? But then you went and interviewed thousands of people. Why did you go interview all those people? What was the thing that made you go, I want to put it into a book?
I think because in my work I talk to so many gardeners and visit so many gardens, and I see extreme lengths that people go to have a garden on their balcony or their paddock, and everything in between, and how much time and money they sometimes put into it. And, reflecting on my own version of that as well, I'm like, wow, we just go all out, don't we, us gardeners? There's no stopping us. And also seeing people in my life, of knowing certain people over years who've developed chronic health situations, who've at certain times in their health journey been bedbound and are still housebound to this day. Like, oh, no, I still have to garden. And then watching people in the public with big public profiles and who've got insane jobs. I can't imagine the stress or the pressure they're under. And then learning that they're gardeners, I'm like, wow, how do you even make time for that practically? Yeah. And just in my own life, when I get incredibly busy, I'm like, oh, no, but I garden. And sometimes that's by torchlight in the morning or the evening. Like, no, I have to garden. Like, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, what is this? And I started asking people this question many years ago, and especially with my work in Gardening Australia. I'm like, oh, so what's brought you to this gardening life? And the questions you get back are, as juicy as you would expect, and also quite repetitive across the board. You see, in the best way, you hear people repeating these things about health, around connection, around, spirituality, whatever you might want to call that. And also about, practical survival things, activism or beauty, all these things just kept repeating themselves. And I just got to the point when, wow, there's so many good stories here. Like, there's so many good stories. And I want to put some words around it because I think these are the types of stories we need to tell right now in the world that we live in, which is so much about division, incredible amounts of conflict. Like, okay, let's start telling stories that highlight what we do have in common. Let's start telling stories that can potentially encourage connection to both people and place. And so that's where it really comes from. All my work is angled at that, but I will come from any angle I can find. I'm just throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. Oh, it's so brilliant because I love that you've gone to the masses and collected it, and the book's divided into themes because you actually went through the data. Like, this is a database book. It's not just like, I feel like this, and it's really cool. But I actually heard about this book last year around September. I interviewed Jane Edmondson on the podcast. And so then, and I was sharing with her stuff that was coming up for me as someone who's in the garden, and the garden for me just at home, and I'm just on a 600 square metre suburban block. It really helped process a lot of grief I had in my life at the time. And probably like you, very curious to understand, why am I doing this? And then what are other people's experiences, which led me to ask conversations. And I remember Jane saying, oh, you need to talk to Hannah. She's exploring this too. Yeah. And it's just so, when I heard that, I'm like, it's just so exciting that, and this is what I think why the book is so powerful, is that we're all out there doing something that we feel driven to do, but we don't always understand why. Yeah. But then collectively, we're all following this thing that has this power to be the best thing ever for humanity. Like, the fact that someone has, plonks plants in the ground and is paying attention, and, there's this reciprocal relationship. It just makes, you can't read this book and not feel hopeful.
Yeah. And that's because there is so much hope there. It's not made up. It's from people's real life stories. Real life experiences. And I think it's interesting that you bring up, it's almost an intuitive thing we do, this gardening bizzo, because we can't always explain it. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. We often dismiss intuition or these feelings that we can't always explain as like, oh, that's just a soft feeling, whatever. Yeah. But I really think it's actually quite significant drive within a lot of us to kind of point us to what's most important. And you feel it towards a range of things, like you're drawn to certain people in life, certain occupations and certain hobbies, or how to be in the world. And I think that's something we should listen to. It's like, oh, this stuff's really good for us. Like, humans want to feel good. Like, and we will always look for that good pathway. And gardening and connection to nature more broadly is absolutely in that mix. And I think for most of us who live in cities, gardening is our gateway to nature, or maybe our only access to nature, whether that's in a balcony or a backyard. And I think it's incredibly important that we listen to that. We don't have to put words around it. I happen to really geek out on it and do lots of research. But you don't.
We love you for that. Yeah.
But I think sometimes we don't have to understand everything all the time. Like, I think it's okay just to go, oh, this feels good, and that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so right as well. Yeah, that sometimes we don't have to know why, and it is just a thing that brings us. Well, one of the words was joy, and that's what Jane talked about so much. But in the book, it was so curious because that's what your data showed. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was it 94% or a huge percent of people?
Yes.
It wasn't the practical benefits. It wasn't cost-saving benefits because we all know that, plants cost lots of money and we'll always find those plant dollars to buy more. But it was joy. It was that emotional connection.
Yeah, and I was surprised. So I gave people a multiple choice. I said, you can tell me all your stories, but also here's a quick multiple choice. Tell me what's the key reason for you to garden. You can choose as many things as you like, but the one thing that came out on top was joy. And that did surprise me because it's not the most practical or, significant thing potentially. But when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, you're right, actually. We want to feel good. We want to, and joy is different to happiness, importantly.
Yes,
happiness
tell us more.
It's like happiness is like a fleeting feeling that comes and goes, like a stranger walks by the street and gives you a flower, like, oh, how delightful. What a happy moment. But joy is this deep accumulative feeling. Like I think about it like I feel happy when my husband brings me a cup of tea in bed in the morning. I'm like, oh, thanks, love. And I feel joy from the many years we've spent together, of the accumulation of experience of kindness and caring, which wraps around all of us. That is deep joy that we've worked at. We've built that joy together. So happiness comes and goes, but joy is the foundation to hold us. Yeah. And when I really looked into all these definitions, I did geek out. I was like, oh, of course. Like gardening is so joyful because it's a relationship, often whether that's a short-term or a long-term relationship, depending on how long you live in that landscape. You're in this, I'm currently in a long-term relationship with my garden. We're 13 or 14 years in. And I think about it like a relationship, and like it's so reciprocal. I nourish the garden nourishes me. I am more interested in its development and what I can give it than what I can take from it. And so I want it to be healthy. I want it to be buzzing with bees and chirping with birds and just, a riot of colour and all these things. And I love thinking about that. And I think you can see, and I fully acknowledge this type of relationship that you see in First Nations culture across the globe. And it's only from living in this one garden that I live in now for some time that I've really starting to have a small sense of that, because I've only been here for 13 or 14 years. Imagine having a connection to landscape that goes thousands of generations back. Imagine.
Amazing.
I
can't even imagine.
No, exactly. So it's helped me reflect on that and just have more awareness and around that. But I think I can't remember what the question was, but I love that, being in a long-term relationship with my garden.
Yeah, joy. Yeah,
yes,
and
joy.
connection. Yeah, connection to country. You actually talk quite a lot about, and you go to people. Who was it? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I don't have it written down. Is it
might have been Tyson Juncker Porter? Or
maybe, but you did talk to a few people who discuss that importance of connection to country.
Yeah, maybe it might have been Costa Georgiadis, who is a fellow presenter on Gardening Australia, but he talked a lot about it, how when he first heard about connection to country, it being a disorientating concept, he's like, oh, what does this mean? And because he comes from a landscape architect and designing background, which is quite, methodical and go through the processes. And connection to country, he's like, oh, this is disorientating, I don't understand. And he talked about how he just had to sit with it for some time and, build relationships with various Aboriginal crew around Australia, and then over time things clicking. He's like, oh, I understand. You're not, when you come back to the same landscape and you see that same tree, it's not just a tree. It's a friend you've met previously, and you're building this relationship. And I think I have a similar kind of reflection. It's like, you're building, just like you see, I've met you a couple of times now, one person, one on the screen. It's like, okay, we're building our relationship. How beautiful. It's a similar thing with country, with trees. And I'm not speaking on behalf of First Nations people, but speaking on behalf of myself. But I think that concept is a really human-friendly concept, and it makes perfect sense once you just mull it over and you're like, I understand now, because we are nature, and just remembering our role within that.
And you talk about that quite a lot in the book, about the importance of remembering. And I think, is it Tim Winton who talked a lot about remembering, and it's almost like it's in our bones, and gardening helps us connect back to this ancient remembering.
Yeah, and we use those words really intentionally, because I don't think we have to learn a new thing here. I think it is a remembering, because it is in our bones, it's in our intuition. We find our way there often just without knowing why. I think for us to be a good human race, we have a strong connection to the landscape. And that doesn't mean that we're all farmers, that we're all gardeners, but we have a respect and acknowledgement of the earth, and that it provides everything we need, and that it will hold us generations to come if we look after it. And if we don't look after the earth, then we're in trouble. Yeah.
I love this line that you say in the book, and you say, all gardens are galaxies of blissful beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I reckon you would, like, and anyone who's been out travelling to gardens, you would see so many examples of, or maybe you'd hear lots of people describe what's beautiful to them. And just my short time in this world and being around lots of gardening people, there are some idealistic views on what is a beautiful garden and then what isn't. So what's changed through your research, or just your, visiting people that you visit, about how you see beauty and beauty in gardens or nature, I suppose?
Cass. Yeah, because I come from a very functional gardening background, very commercial and productive. So from a herb nursery, I worked on nurseries, I worked on market gardens. It's very much you grow what's useful, what you can sell, what you can produce. So beauty to me initially was very much based around productivity. How much can your land produce? And that's changed radically over the years. I'd look at a rose garden and I'd scoff at it. What a waste of space. Anything ornamental is like, not native, like pooey,
Yeah.
I'm happy to report they have completely evolved, and I love all gardens that are looking after the environment, and that includes rose gardens, that you can have a beautiful organic rose garden, love it. Because what I've learned is that I love the amount of love people have for their gardens.
Yes.
Doesn't even matter what they look like. It can be pure lawn. And I'm not personally a fan of lawn because it's incredibly resource hungry, not always climate appropriate. And I can totally get down that lawn and geek out with that person and appreciate their love for it, because it's their connection to their landscape. So my concept of beauty has completely evolved. These days I'll go to open gardens around Hobart or wherever I am, and I'll go to, purely gardens I'd never create myself, or I'd never seek out usually, but I intentionally go and look at them incredibly ornamental gardens and just be there and just soak it up and just appreciate that love and care that goes into them. There's so much. So, and these days my garden absolutely has a cranking veggie garden, big orchard. It has so many flowers. It has so many, in inverted commas, useless plants, and they are 100% useful, and they're part of this. I'm into gardening for ecosystem health, and having diverse flowers and ornamentals and natives and edibles all integrated. It's, I think, a really beautiful and dynamic space. And so I think beauty, it is in the eye of the beholder, absolutely. But I'm so grateful that I've learned to see beauty everywhere. I'm so grateful for that. Otherwise, we're just not seeing. Like, we're not getting as much joy as we can out of the world. And we go, that's right, that's wrong, or that's good, that's bad. It's like, that's beautiful, that's ugly. It's like, mate, there's beauty everywhere.
Yeah. And something I think that came up for me when you're talking about that is I reflect back on how I grew when I first started. So I started in lockdown, and I grew in these, made my own wicking beds in polystyrene boxes. And now I look back, I'm like, oh, it's so ugly. But that's what I said at the time. But I look back and I have such fondness for how I felt and the love that I gave those little boxes. And it was really productive. Yes. And it was where I was at the time. Like that was, Gardening Cass version 1.0. And then, from there I learned, actually, maybe if I try it this way. And then we learn, okay, well, maybe if I group these things together. And so, sometimes I feel a bit sad when I hear people at opens and they're like, oh, I wouldn't use those roundabout plants or that there. And you're like, oh, come on. But we're all on these different journeys and we're all at different places, and we've got to love each stage we're at
Oh,
And because we're
absolutely.
feeling the joy there at that time, whether or not we had the world's most awarded garden or not. But that's what I loved about what you talked about in the book, is that it's not about the, technicalities of the planting of things. It's how the people feel at the time
Yeah.
when they're engaging with the garden.
Yeah. And I think that's the key to the thing to focus on. Someone talked to me last year talking about dahlia flowers, and I was like, they've come back into trend. And I was like, I'd never really thought about plants and or styles of gardens being trendy or not trendy. And of course they are, but I just had never occurred to me to think about that. I'm like, plants are always on trend, aren't they? Like, depending where you are at in your gardening life, you're just fixating on this one or that one, or this collection of plants, and it's but it's ever evolving, and I love that.
Yeah, so true. Something I also wanted to talk about in the book that came up as a theme was gardening as a way to ground yourself, especially during the process of grief. What did you find in the data around that idea?
Look, and this was another one that I hadn't really heard about grief gardening. I'd heard about, the concept of being in nature for grief kind of healing. But this really surprised with me. Like, hundreds of people mentioned gardening for grief, and like so many personal stories, incredibly generously shared about how that's what got them through a loved one's death, whether that's suicide or terminal illness or a shock death, and how the only thing that could really ground them and help them to just process things was to just be outside, just to get their hands in the soil. When my own mother died when I was 18, before I started travelling, subconsciously I was like, I did spend a lot of time gardening, farming, camping, bushwalking that year in particular, like a lot of time. And I don't think that was accidental. I think it was absolutely intuitively seeking out what I needed. And I think people intuitively will go and lie underneath a tree, intuitively, go and grow amazing vegetables and build incredible compost piles, because you're just with nature, and we'll all have our own experiences within that. But I do believe nature is one of our best friends in good and hard times. Just kind of, we can lean on her and she just holds us up beautifully. Yeah.
You also talk about spirituality in the book, and spirituality means so many things to different people, doesn't it? In my own story, I shared that I came from an organised religious background, and then when I sort of deconstructed and left that about 10 years ago, there was quite an untethering, because I had this way of like, this is how you be in the world and you be a good person. And I really believe that through being in nature and being in my garden, I was able to see relationships with plants and how just nature worked. And that taught me about how to be a good person. I'd love to know, what does that word spirituality with gardening or nature mean to you or look like for you?
Oh, it's a big question, because I think it's maybe for me going to always evolve and change as I go. So for me, spirituality in the garden, I think I've had some dreams actually where I am the garden, like my feet are in the root, like I am the tree, I am the plant. And the feeling of that is what I think of when I think about spirituality in nature. And what it gives me is incredible grounding, and just like when I've had the hardest times in my life, if I can just get into the garden, if I have had a garden at that time, it's been incredibly helpful to, it's not going to make me feel 100%, but it'll make me feel a little bit better, and I think that spirituality is around, this is a really good question, because spirituality does mean so many different things. To me, it means connected to myself and strong in myself. So when I'm strong and clear in myself. So you mentioned before about feeling untethered. What's the opposite of that? Feeling tethered. Yeah. I feel strong and clear and tethered to myself. Yeah. And gardening helps me find my way back to that feeling. And it might be, in a particularly hard patches, it might not get me all the way back there, but it helps me turn that right direction. Yeah, okay, just keep going. And because I think it's just that, I don't know if there's any good words for it. I'd have to think about it properly, but that otherworldliness that nature and remembering that we are nature that can give us, that can ground us in who we are in the world.
Yeah, I love how you talked about that in the book, about reminding us that we are part of nature.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the interconnectedness of everything. That's what else you
Yeah.
said. That
Oh
really
my,
resonated for me.
it's so true. And I think the
Mm.
more we remember that, the better, because what happens on one side of the world impacts this side of the world, happens this, my garden impacts your garden.
Yeah.
In and out of the garden, we are so entangled, and we need to remember that. And we can't think and act in silos. We need to think and act very much in a connected ecosystem. Yeah.
And is that kind of going back to permaculture? Is that part of the permaculture ethos or philosophy?
Yeah, look, part of that is very much, that's why it has a range of design principles and a range of categories, if you like, where I mentioned you can apply it across governance or economics or health and well-being, etc. It's very holistic in that you can go, okay, how can we think beyond those silos? It's not just gardening, it's not just governance, it's not just politics. Everything is entangled. And especially in this global world we live in now, it is triple entangled. I don't know. So, yeah, I think permaculture absolutely helped kind of explain that to me, that thinking, and how you can apply that holistic thinking. It's like, I really believe it's, David Holmgren, who's the co-originator of permaculture, he calls it's the common sense that just isn't so common right now. And so
that's so good.
I know. I really am, like, you bang on, because I don't believe it's rocket science. I think it's quite straightforward, but we're not encouraged to think that way. As going through most of our education system doesn't encourage that. It encourages us to niche down and focus on what you're good at and go that way, and which is great. We need people to be really skilled in different professions. I do think we need an overview of the world that to remember that we're all very much dependent on the planet, and gardening can help that.
Yeah, that's so good. And there's so much in the book about all those different ways. There's a lot about art and how you communicate those messages. And you've got, is it a project coming up or was the cabaret show that you did something you have done?
Yes, it has something I have done and I'm planning to do more of. So, so watch that space. But so I did a climate justice cabaret last year with the 10 Days on the Island Festival here in Lutruwita, Tasmania. And we worked together for the year leading up to it to develop this one-woman live show, which was me, which I'd never done before. It was incredibly, it was all my idea, but but it's very much, inspired by nature, speaking up on behalf of nature and encouraging people to look after future generations as well as now. But I really leant on gardening and nature a lot through that steep learning curve, because it was a slight terrifying thing to do. And I'm so glad it's been done, because it's another way to communicate. I mentioned earlier, a lot of the being outside my comfort zones are often a really good sign that I'm stretching myself. And in terms of solution-based activism, Climate Justice Cabaret absolutely fits into that umbrella. I'm like, okay, what else can I do here that's positive, interesting, engaging? It's going to make people laugh, make people think, and maybe even inspire them to act in a certain way if that's appropriate. So all these things I do, people are like, what are you doing, Hannah? Like, this is part of it makes perfect sense in my brain about how can I be useful in this world for this world. And coming up, I'm planning to walk across Tasmania in a giant bird puppet my husband's going to make me next year to raise awareness about habitat for wildlife, and also start conversations or contribute to conversations around conservation of wild places, and how we all we can't garden without our wild places intact, because they filter our air, they provide air, they filter our water and clean our water, and hubs of biodiversity. So I just, I'm constantly thinking about what else can I do? How is it interesting and fun and engaging and good for me, but good for everybody else?
You're just a powerhouse. It's so inspiring. But actually linking to this though, because you do quite openly talk about it in the book. And one of the supporters for the podcast has asked, what's your relationship with self-doubt in this work? Because you're very public and you're having to share bits of or a lot of your life.
Yes.
What's your relationship with that like? One of the lovely things about the Sentimental Friends community on Patreon is that supporters can help shape these conversations through their own questions and reflections. If you'd like to access more bonus content like this question I've just asked Hannah and support the ongoing making of The Sentimental Gardener, you can join with a free 2-week trial on Patreon at patreon.com/thesentimentalgardener or sign up through Apple Podcasts. Okay, back to the episode. Now, on the podcast, we ask our guests 3 sentimental plants that have some type of memory or meaning attached to them. Yes. So I'd love to hear about the plants for you.
Okay, so I have these in my brain always. So number 1 plant is nasturtium. And it's a childhood plant for me where after it rained in the subtropics, Brisbane, you'd be outside in the rain often because it's warm, but I go out to the leaves and you can drink the little fresh raindrops from the leaf. I just have the beautiful memories. And also when you're a little kid, you could crawl under, because they're quite sprawling ground covers, you could just kind of duck your head under really easily. Yep. And underneath there is a whole world. It's like fairy haven underneath there. So it's like a really sentimental feeling of being a kid, drinking the raindrops and exploring underneath the ground cover of those gorgeous leaves. Wow. Another plant is the common seaside daisy. The non-invasive type is also known as coastal daisy. And that one reminds me of my mum. And it's kind of like one of the easiest plants to grow. It'll grow out of the crack of a footpath, you know. Yeah. My mum wasn't a natural gardener, but she was really proud she grew a couple of bunches of these next to the front gate of our house, and she was so proud. And we would tease her about it because I actually needed to look after them, Mum. But every time I saw them, I just think of her. As a result, I've got like 30 of them out in my front garden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just love them.
That's cool.
Really hardy, obviously, great plants for rockeries. But I think about her like every time I see them, which is multiple times a day, which I love. Yeah. And the third plant, I think, look, I could go in a range of directions, but I think I love like the mango tree because growing up, again, this is all family. No, I'm going to stick with the mango tree. So we were lucky kids. Like we had 2 tree houses. One was in a macadamia tree and one was in 2 mango trees with a bridge that we built in between them. Very badly built. I'm amazed that none of us broke bones. But we just walk between the mango trees and just eat fruit in our incredible, badly built tree houses. I'm like, what a amazing experience. And that to us is just normal. And I love that. I love these plants that they build your childhood and they build your memories. I'm like, so cool. I love it.
I love that too. And I'm just thinking my kids love mangoes. And the thought that you could just have whatever, like whenever you want mangoes and fresh too. That's just the dream. Yeah. So we're going to do a quick fire question round to finish off, and just whatever pops into your head. You don't know these questions beforehand either, so I'm really curious to hear what your answers are. All right, first one. Finish this sentence. A beautiful garden to me is
alive with colour, birds, food, natives, shade, and somewhere to lie down.
Oh, that's good. That's great. That was really like you were ready for that.
I'm on.
You can see it. You must be able to see it in your mind. Yeah. Okay. Which flower best represents you?
Ooh. Okay. I thought it was a multiple choice.
Oh, sorry. No, it wasn't a multiple choice. This is like which one? Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. This is interesting. Ooh. Okay. My first thought, which I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the sunflower. Because it's often they're really tall. I'm 6'2", so I'm a really tall sunflower, and they're really bright and happy, which I often am. And you can still eat the face, all the sunflower seeds.
The best answer ever. You are, I shouldn't say you are really tall, but I'm 5'8", I think 5'9". And yeah, I did, I ran into you at the Melbourne Flower and Garden Show, and I said to my friend who was with me, I don't often feel short around people because I'm often looking down at people height-wise, not down at them. And I was like, I love it because I'm not like the tallest anymore.
Totally,
so,
I'm tall. So, I'm a tall sunflower.
Oh, that is perfect. All right, awesome. Now, I understand you have a lot of animals at home. So you've got goats, chickens, ducks, you've got bees.
Bees. Yeah, ducks have recently departed to a friend's farm, but yes.
Okay, yeah. Bees, you'd have butterflies. You've got a dog.
Yes.
And you've also got a unicorn in the garden, don't you? Okay, if you could swap lives with any of them for the day, which one would it be?
Definitely my dog. My dog gets so many cuddles and he gets it so much love, like 100 times a day. I'll be like, hello, little puppy. Oh, Snooky Pookie. He is so well loved. I'll just be like, definitely.
What type of dog is it?
He's a cavoodle, like a little mid-sized cavoodle, and his name's Ollie, but we call him Little Bro as a nickname, but his more recent nickname, which we all call him now, is Sacred Angel.
That's the best.
Hilarious.
Cavoodles are 10-star love dogs. I've been heard. We've got 2, so
my God,
10-star love dogs. Yeah, totally get it. Yeah. Okay. What is one word or sentence to describe how you feel when you're in your garden?
Okay. The feeling is this is where I'm meant to be. Yeah, like it feels like I don't know if this is a term, but can you be earthed out? I'm earthed out, like, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like you're like, you know, when you can say, what's the phrase? No, I think I'm making up phrases.
That's all right. We can just attribute the quote to you.
Yeah, okay. I'm just like deeply earthed and the feeling is like, oh, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. Yes.
Wow. That is so cool. I love that. All right. Now, who is one person, it can either be from history or still alive, that you would love to walk around their garden with and listen to their garden or plant stories?
Oh, what a wonderful question. Oh, I love this question. Geez. It's also horrible because it's so hard to answer. Look, my brain has gone to some people that I don't know. My brain's gone to David Attenborough. Like, what an amazing person to walk around and just hear his plant stories, because they would be inherently I imagine jumping across the globe as he remembers different ecosystems, different experiences. And similarly with the late Jane Goodall, for similar reasons, they have such a global presence in our environmental movement, if you like. And I would love to hear their stories, which are plant-based but would then quickly weave in animals and people and everything else. So I think those two people are really interesting to me because they are, you know, known for their particular approaches in their work and their particular areas, but they inherently think in a very interconnected way with their work. Yeah, I love that. And the other person that comes to mind is Mr. Bob Brown down here, former leader of the Greens Party in Australia. Yeah. I happen to know Bob and have had numerous chats to him about this. He's included in the book. And I love hearing him talk about his garden and his work by extension. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, I know. And I thought it'd be hard for you because you've already met so many people and your job is to listen to them and their garden stories. But it's always cool to hear who you'd love to wander with. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. I also want to say thank you for writing the book because, as I said, like I was really expectant. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. And I feel like it really put into words things that I've felt but sometimes didn't know other people felt until I started doing the podcast. Yeah. And also towards the end, there was something that shifted for me because I was having a bit of a wobbly month with, there's a lot of work you do in the podcast and talking to people and it's a lot of putting yourself out there. And sometimes that can be really hard to, manage and juggle with family. And then sometimes you go, is it meaningful to other people? Is it worth it? So I got towards the end and the activism part and I had that moment of like, oh, no, this is like important. This is what I meant to do.
Right. Love
almost
it.
that Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you because I have this, it was just last night when I was reflecting on it, this renewed sense of, this is really worth it. And even if no one listened, well, it'd be good if people did listen. They do listen. But it's always that question, would I still be doing this if there wasn't a big audience?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I loved what you were talking about before of activism can look like thinking just about where do I invest my money or how do I set up my garden so it's not leaving such a big footprint, all of those things. So, I've come away feeling really like buoyed and just great and hopeful. So thank you so much for, imagine all the work and the effort you've put into creating it and sorting through the data for us. And it's just beautiful, and what a gift, hey?
Absolute pleasure. I'm so glad it's been helpful and well received by yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being my guest, and good luck with the rest of it. What stayed with me after our conversation with Hannah was the reminder that meaningful lives are crafted together through people, place, and our participation in the living world around us. Again and again, Hannah returned to this question: how can I be useful in this world for this world? And what I found so moving and inspiring was that her answer wasn't just one thing. It was about people and place, about working with landscapes and communities to craft solutions together. Not imposing on them, not perfecting them, but tending to them collectively over time. And I think that's why this conversation feels and is so much bigger than gardening. Because underneath, it is an invitation to reconsider our relationship to the living world and with each other. To see ourselves not as separate from the ecosystems we belong to, but as participants within them. Hannah's story reminds us that the places we grow up in shape us in quiet and enduring ways. That a backyard, a neighbourhood nursery, a community garden, or a bit of urban soil can become more than a backdrop. They can become places where values are formed, where possibilities are imagined, and where entirely different ways of living begin to start. And maybe that's what part of really flourishing in life really is about. Not individual achievement, but learning how to create conditions where more life, human and non-human alike, can thrive together. If you're listening today feeling the weight of what is happening across the world right now, to people, in communities, and to our ecosystems, and feeling small in the face of it all, I hope this conversation reminds you that activism doesn't always begin with grand gestures. It often begins with just noticing and caring. By identifying a problem and choosing to participate in crafting solutions rather than ignoring them or turning away from them. Because as Hannah reminds us, doing something, however small, local or imperfect, is still a way of tending the world, and still better than doing nothing at all. Thank you so much for listening to The Sentimental Gardener. If you've enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review as your act of activism today on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps other people find these conversations and helps the reach go further. You can find out more about Hannah's work at goodlifepermaculture.com.au and follow her on Instagram at Hannah_Moloney. She is currently doing a book tour for Why We Garden across the country, and you can find out dates for your state on Hannah's website. You can follow The Sentimental Gardener on Instagram, YouTube, and subscribe to Sentimental Friends for extra content over on Patreon. Also, sign up to our newsletter that comes out after each episode with reflections and questions to go a little deeper with what we've heard today. The link is in the show notes. A huge thank you to Hayden Schuler from Varaya Gardening for our theme music and Tom Dowding for audio mixing. This is The Sentimental Gardener, produced and edited by me, Cass Dowding.